Just like to offer a big shout out to Touchdown Digital for sponsoring this week's video.
Take a look at this picture. What about this image? What about this one? What about this one here? Take a look at this one. And finally, what about this one? If I didn't tell you what camera I used to take those images, you'd be none of the wiser. Hello, my name's Glenn Samuel and you're watching Sniper Photography. So good to have you all here. This is the Canon 80D crop sensor body with the 10 to 18mm EFS lens, 4.5 to 5.6. Pretty basic, but a very good crop sensor camera by Canon. This is the camera that I usually film a lot of my, 90% of my YouTube videos, both here in the studio and outside on location. But why am I talking to you about this? Well, it's a very good video camera. Canon really nailed it with the 80D. Now this is 6 years old. I purchased it brand new 6 years ago. I actually got it in the United States actually, because it was a little bit cheaper over there, of course, at the time. But I took those photographs probably 3 years ago as an experiment to see or to show people what you could do with a crop sensor body. Now, as I said, you've just seen those images and you had no idea what camera I used. You wouldn't know. The only way, well, you do know now because I've just told you, I used a Canon 80D crop sensor body with a kit, sort of like a kit lens that you can buy with that camera. And I mainly brought it for video, but it does take really good stills, so still images. So, but what's this about? What am I talking about? Well, look, basically, if you're shooting with a crop sensor body and you're thinking about upgrading to a new camera or going full frame, you need to ask yourself a couple of questions. The first question is, what are you going to do with your images? Are you only going to post them to social media, such as Facebook, Instagram, or even on YouTube? Well, then you don't really need a full frame camera, do you? You don't really need that expense. If your photography level has come up to where your camera is, and you think that your photography skill is starting to be impeded by the gear you've got, well then yes, I suggest you look at upgrading. But I firmly believe 90% of people, their photographic skill is here, but the camera they own is up here. Now whether that's crop sensor, full frame, mirrorless, micro four thirds, it doesn't matter. Now, this is aimed at the people that are thinking of upgrading. At the end of the day, to upgrade a camera, it costs you a lot of money, a lot of hard-earned cash. And I believe people are being fooled by camera manufacturers. Now, the pathway to becoming a good photographer is not pushing a button on a keypad and order from Amazon or to walk into a camera store. That's not the pathway to great photography. The pathway to great photography is actually getting to know the equipment that you have, learning to use it and using it to the maximum. Then you will know whether you need to upgrade your camera. Because let's face it, upgrading a camera is very, very expensive. Now, as I said, if you're just posting images to social media, Facebook, Instagram, and even here on YouTube, why go to the expense of buying full frame? A lot of people that use crop sensor bodies don't even edit, so they shoot in JPEG. And those images, by the way, you just seen are all shot in JPEG. I didn't alter them one bit. I let the camera do it in the JPEG format. So if you're into photography and you're shooting with a crop sensor body that's 4, 5, 6, even 10 years old, do you really need to upgrade? I mean, as I said, unless you're printing your images, which I suggest everybody does, because that's another quick, surefire way of learning about photography. If you're not printing your images or even selling photographs from your camera, well then full frame, mirrorless, micro four thirds mightn't be for you. You're better off sticking with the crop sensor body you've got and putting that money that you were going to put into a full frame kit or a mirrorless kit into photography education. Photography education is so important. Read books, go on, join photography clubs, go to workshops. That's the way to learn photography. Becoming great at something, it doesn't matter what tools you've got. If you don't understand the actual principle, and the principle of photography is light, composition and creating emotion, it doesn't matter what camera gear you have. It's irrelevant what camera you actually shoot with. So if you've got a 6-year-old digital SLR crop sensor with a kit lens, or a lens like this one, 10-18, and you're really happy with it, why spend that money and upgrade? Just because, look at me, I've got a full frame camera. That means absolutely nothing. Once again, I can speak with authority on this because twice a month I have camera representatives, reps from different camera manufacturers, importers come to my studio, and we sit down and we chew the fat and have a cup of coffee, and they talk to you about what's happening in the industry. 2 weeks ago, a camera representative from a reputable manufacturer came here and sat down with me. He's quite a good friend of mine now. I've known him for about 15 years. And he opened a box and he produced this new camera that's going to be released within the next 6 to 8 weeks here in Australia. I won't mention the brand. It's a very well-known brand. A lot of people use them. And he showed me this camera and I thought, well, what are you showing me this for? He said, now just have a look at it. I want your opinion. So I had a look and I turned it on, just the body only, and it looked really good, nice to use, a little bit small for my hands. I've got giant hands, but it was a nice camera. I said, I won't mention the brand or the manufacturer of it. And he said, turn it to settings. Have a look at the settings. So I go through the settings, and to my amazement, seriously, this camera has a setting in it in the settings menu for cake photography. Please. Seriously? Cake photography? There's a setting inside this new camera that's just about to be released that has a setting in there so you can take good photos of cakes, because it's got a setting for cake photography in the settings menu. I was dumbfounded. I was actually speechless, and that's rare for me because I'll talk, I speak up. But cake setting? I said to this rep, I said, are you serious? He said, no, that's what they're doing. So what the camera manufacturers are doing, they're adding all these features and selling it on the fact that you need this to be a really good photographer. You need this setting to take really good photos of cakes at a birthday party. And the new person out there falls for this rubbish because this is the only thing camera manufacturers can do now. They can't really do much more. And the only way they're going to get you to buy new cameras is to add these most ridiculous, ludicrous settings, such as a cake setting, for Christ's sakes, and make it out that if you don't have that camera, you're going to be failing as a photographer. That's a complete nonsense. If you, like, this is the Canon 80D. Canon released, I think, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, Canon 90D. I didn't sell this and buy a 90D, didn't have to. But I know some people have, and they're wasting their money. They are wasting their money. I mean, money's tight these days. Cost of living is going through the roof in this country. Why get bamboozled and legally lied to by manufacturers? It's saying that this is the best camera for this is the best lens for this. If you don't have this, well, you might be missing out. That is a load of rubbish. Just look at the images I showed you at the beginning of this video, taken with this Canon 80D crop sensor body with a kit lens, shot in JPEG. Now I can put them up on social media. I just put them up on YouTube. You didn't know what camera or lens I used until I told you. So seriously, do you really need to upgrade your camera from what you've got? Now, I get asked to be guest speaker at a lot of camera clubs throughout Sydney. And one of the questions I ask these people in the camera club, in the audience, I say, what do you do with your photographs? What do you do with your images? 90% of them, or 95% of them say, oh, we just leave them on a hard drive, leave them on the SD card, leave them in the computer, leave them in a Lightroom library catalogue. What camera are you using? Oh, I'm using a full frame Canon 5D Mark IV. Really? That's all you do with your images? That's like driving the Porsche in second gear, third gear. You're not really getting the full benefit from it, you know? So seriously, if you're new to photography, you've been in it for a few years and you're trying to, or you're thinking about upgrading, don't waste your money. Certainly don't waste your time. Don't fall for the marketing hype that comes out of these camera manufacturers, because that's the only way they're going to survive. The only way camera manufacturers are able to survive now is to put all this rhetoric and all this jargon into the sales pitch to make you think that you need the latest and greatest to take a good image, which that is a blatant, out and out industry lie. Now, I don't give a bugger what people think about what I've just said there, because at the end of the day, you can do what you like with your money, but I'm here trying to save you some money. As I said, don't go out and spend a fortune, $4,000 on a camera body or $2,500, $3,000 on a lens, when you could probably, where you don't need it, and you're buying a camera that has features you'll never use. Like, I know people that buy a certain certain model of camera, and it's a fantastic video camera, but it really struggles with battery power and stills photography, and it's 45 megapixels. Then those megapixels will never be used. Those images never get printed. So that person has probably wasted $4,000 or $5,000 when they could have brought something else for 2.5 and got the same result, because they're doing the same thing with it. This is, you know, I love talking about this stuff. I know a lot of people disagree with it, but, you know, when it comes to money, I think we all agree that we've got to be very careful with our money. Very, very careful indeed. Now, I hardly ever update my personal cameras, which are Canon 5D Mark IVs. I've got 3 5D Mark IVs. Sure, I can get them a bit cheaper through the trade because I'm a registered business. But I don't go out every 5 minutes and buy, like, I haven't switched to mirrorless. I don't have to. I particularly don't like the mirrorless cameras because I find them too small. I've got massive hands and I like a big solid camera. All due respects to mirrorless owners, they're great cameras. Can make that R5, R6, whatever it is, and that's a good camera as well. It's hell of a lot of money to buy for a camera that has features you may never use. I mean, seriously, the only cameras that I have to update every 3 years is my commercial photography, my commercial cameras, which are Hasselblads, and they're 25 grand a body. So I've got to update one of those every 3, maybe 4 years. And I have to, because I make a living from those cameras. When I'm teaching photography in the workshops, I just use my 5D Mark IVs. If I'm printing out, I can use my 5D Mark IV because it's a good megapixel camera. It handles high dynamic range quite well. So really think about what you're doing when you're thinking about upgrading your camera. Maybe you don't have to. This thing here is a great camera to use. I mean, sure, it's APS-C, crop sensor body, but there's nothing wrong with it. The video's good and the stills are good that come out of it. And I'm using a fairly cheap sort of lens, as you've seen in those images at the beginning of this video. So if you're thinking about updating a camera, really think about what your skill level is, where it is. If your skill level's here and your camera's here, you've got a bit to go. It's only when your skill level gets to a point where you think your camera's letting you down, that's when I suggest you start thinking about upgrading. Also too, if you're using a crop sensor body and you want to start printing some photographs or printing your images, or people are inquiring about buying your images, well then yes, certainly have a look at a so-called better camera. But there's one thing that all cameras don't have, and that's the human setting. They have cake settings, for God's sakes, but it doesn't have a human setting. So unless the person behind the camera hasn't got it up here and doesn't understand photography, it doesn't mean anything. as to what camera body or what camera you use. So let me know what you think of this one. Controversial as always, but it needs to be said, needs to be spoken, and I'll certainly talk about it, and I'll talk about it forever. Yeah, I just see so many people wasting so much money on features in a camera that they'll never use or never even understand. So don't waste your money. Think about where you are with your photography. If you think your skill level's too high for the camera you've got, then certainly have a look. But if you're just going out once a week on a Saturday, twice a month, taking photos, and you're only putting them up to social media or here on YouTube, don't race out and spend $6 and $7 grand on a camera and lens. You are wasting your money and you're being conned, thinking that you need a camera like that to take and make great images. So that's it for another episode of Sniper Photography. My name's Glenn Samuel. Thank you for watching. It means a lot to me. Any remarks or comments, please put them downstairs and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you're new to this channel, please hit the subscribe button and hit that bell next door. You know what to do. If you have recently joined this channel, I much appreciate it. It means a lot to me as well. So that's it for Sniper Photography. My name's Glenn Samuel. As I always say, be nice to yourself, family and friends, but most of all, you keep shooting, keep smiling, and bye for now.